Hi, welcome to Big Time Paranormal. My name is Larry Gonzalez, and I run a Facebook page called Big Time Paranormal. What we do on there is we bring to you the latest in hauntings, ufology, cryptozoology, cutting-edge technology, mythology, and we also try to bring a laugh or two on some of the things we might find that we think that's very humorous. Well, on this segment, we also try to do the same thing. So basically what you see here is what you see there, but it's much more extensive there. So if you like what you see here, come on over, take a look, and again, thank you for being here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about Demi Lovato. Now, if you're not familiar with her, she's an actress-singer, and she was doing an interview for a radio show. And she was talking about a house that she used to live in as a child, and it was haunted. So let's watch some of the video from that.
I got one more question for you because I heard you have a ghost story.
I do.
Okay. I want you to tell it coming up. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. All right, Demi Lovato, ghost time. I'm ready for this. What is your ghost story? Because I heard it's crazy.
Well, okay. A bunch of weird things had been happening where I was living, and one of the things that had happened was I went to shut my closet door, and, well, okay, before I get to this, I'm actually going to tell you a few instances that happened. There would be times where, like, my dad would lose his belt or whatever, so he would search the house, like, 3 times. My sisters and I would help. My mom would look. We'd look all over the place, and then all of a sudden we'd go back into his room, and the belt would be, like, perfectly coiled on the bed.
Okay.
And that was just, like, normal for us. There was a time where, like, me, my dad, and my mom, and my little sister, who was a baby at the time, were watching TV, and all 3 of us, or 4 of us, I guess 3 because Madison is too young, we all saw something come down the stairs and go into the kitchen. And we're in the living room, like, right there. And my dad was like, "Hey, Dallas, can you grab me a glass of Kool-Aid?" And she didn't answer. And my mom was like, "Dallas, don't be rude." And we all look over there. She's not in the kitchen. Dallas comes walking down the stairs. And we were just like, okay, just another weird thing that happens. Just so many things. Like, same thing with the belt. He was looking for his socks one time. My dad used to wear, like, the fanciest socks ever. I don't know why. Whatever.
You got fancy socks on, Dad?
He's wearing flip-flops today. He's cooled down a little bit. He's retired, yeah. But we would go back into his room, and there would be socks, like, perfectly laid out on his bed. And we would always hear, like, big crashes coming from upstairs. We'd go upstairs, nothing. Like, all the furniture was still in place. Just weird things. So one night, I went to go to bed, and I went to shut my closet door, and when I shut it, I saw a little girl dressed like she was from, like, the 1800s or 1700s, whatever. And it, like, just standing in my closet. And I like, froze, and I ran into my older sister's room. And I was like, "Oh, my God, Dallas, please, can I sleep with you tonight?" She was like, "Your face is, like, white. What just happened?" And I was like, I just saw a ghost. And she was like, "Oh, my God." And incidentally, like, actually, I don't know if that's a word, but it's okay because I was homeschooled. I told my mom, like, a week later, but the only reason why I told her is because she was like, "Hey, were you guys awake and running around upstairs at night, like, the other night?" We're like, "No, why?" She was like, "Well, because for the past week I've been hearing, like, people running around upstairs, or footsteps, and I'd go upstairs to check it out because it's like 2 in the morning. You guys should be going to sleep, and you guys are dead asleep." And I was like, "Well, no, we haven't actually, but I did see a little girl in my closet." So,
by the way, yeah.
By the way, and then she hit me with this. She was like, "Well, you know that when you were 5 years old, I came upstairs into the room that was on the other side of my closet, and you were talking by yourself, and there was a picture frame of a little girl dressed like she was from the 1800s. You know, like, when you buy a picture frame, it comes with, like, a paper thing. And she comes in, and she says, "Demi, who are you talking to?" And I said, "She's my best friend, Victoria." And
it's time for you to move.
But I did, yeah, time for me to root for it, yeah. So we now live in California.
Okay.
But no, it's just really weird, and I don't remember that happening, which is the weirdest part. And then I saw a little girl in my closet, just weird, just throwing it out there. I totally
Creepy.
believe in ghosts. After that, there's no way I can't.
There you go. Now, the reason I like pulling up stuff like that is because when you have celebrities that, again, that talk about what they do, it's because it's a little bit more closer to us, because a lot of times when we see celebrities from television shows or whatever, we feel more connected to them because they're in our home each and every week and so on. So props off to her for talking about it, because obviously this is something that people want to talk about more and more. So good for her. Okay, so now we're going to be going off of the paranormal, and we're going to be talking about a little bit about the space race, and we are really entering a new era. Now, back in '61, John F. Kennedy, who was president at the time, gave this tremendous speech about racing to the moon. And of course, we were in a race against the Russians, who had already launched a satellite into orbit. And so let's take a look at this video.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too. We shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that on the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do all this, and do it right, and do it first before this decade is out, then we must be bold.
Okay, so as you can see, it was a challenge at the time. We actually beat that deadline, which was pretty phenomenal. The Russians were trying to beat us there, but they never actually made it. Now, let's watch this video. This was just something that just came out of the UK, where they want to send a team to Mars.
The mission will start with our launch, and in that we'll have everything we need to go to Mars.
We're going to launch in a relatively conventional rocket, but at the top of that rocket is going to be a cruise stage and the re-entry vehicle to get us landed onto Mars.
There'll be a short, ever such short burn to get us away from the Earth and into this curved trajectory going towards Mars. During that, our spaceship will literally just split apart, connected by our little tether, and it will start spinning to create this artificial gravity. Fingers crossed there won't be any solar storms on the way from the Earth to Mars, and we can keep going nice and gently. Once we get to Mars, we'll re-tether it together, the astronauts will join in the nose cone, and it will be ejected into the Martian atmosphere. This is why you need this big cone at the front to soak up all that heat going through the atmosphere.
At 700 miles an hour or so, they will be able to release a parachute. Right at the last moment on entry, the legs are going to be deployed, and we hope that re-entry vehicle quite gracefully descends on those retro rockets down to the surface of Mars.
Some people think that the use of humans is just something that is popular and very attractive from an adventure and inspirational point of view, but there are also real scientific benefits for sending humans. Humans can data process while they're walking around, while they're looking at rocks. They're probably the most sophisticated computer, the most sophisticated robotic living organism that we can imagine.
There'll be the building of the habitat, and there'll be some experiments on the Martian surface. After a couple of months, we'll drive from our landing zone to the return launcher. We'll getting that, hopefully it will be fueled up, fire off from the Martian surface and fly back to the Earth again.
So, according to some things I've been looking up, to give you an idea what kind of race we're looking at, let's see, the US, Russians, the Europeans, the Chinese, amongst others, are all talking about either getting to Mars or to the moon. Yes, we've already been to the moon, but they want to be able to have the bragging rights of saying we got there. Especially to Mars. They want the bragging rights of saying we got there first. Now, private industry wants to go there as well. Businessman and former space tourist Dennis Tito wants to send an American couple on a mission beginning in 2018 that would pass within 100 miles or 160 kilometers of Mars before using the planet's gravity to slingshot the craft back to Earth. Now, this is something I have reported before, weeks ago, that they wanted to do this. The Dutch project Mars One proposes putting a human colony on the planet beginning in 2023, while SpaceX chief executive Elon Musk has spoken of sending a private human mission to Mars within 12 to 15 years. Now, of course, there's a lot they're going to have to overcome. Now, pretty much everyone, except for the one where they're talking about slingshotting back to the Earth, realizes that this is probably going to be a one-way mission because your bones and your muscles and so on start to break down a little bit, and you can't take the gravity of Earth anymore. I mean, you've seen videos talking about astronauts who have come back from a mission from space where a lot of times they need help walking because they are unable to walk, even though they might exercise. You see them carried. Now, that is the new space race, like it or not. So, with that being said about the space race, you might be thinking, why? Why are we sending people to Mars and the moon and so on like that when we can actually use that money to help feed the homeless and stuff like that? And I can understand your feelings about that. You know, why go out there when we need to take care of these things at home? For I understand, even if they were to spend all this money on all these projects to feed the homeless and so on, you only can feed them for so long before the money runs out. And then what? And the worst part is that you also create a system where people become dependent on the government instead of being able to do it on your own. And I can understand that part as well. But let's take a look at a video about some of the things that we see today that were invented through NASA. Now, this is only the top 10. There are many, many, many other things that were invented through through the space race and through NASA and so on that we actually use every day. But this is only the top 10. So let's watch that video right now. So there you have it, the top 10 things. So now we're going to be talking about cutting edge technology. Cutting edge technology is usually right on the crisp of something fantastic that is being explored. Now, one of the things that has just come out is smart glass, smart crystals. How many of you remember this scene from the second Superman movie where Lex Luthor is actually going through crystals and finding that there's actually information on them? Let's take a look at that video.
So much for moral rearmament. Give me another crystal.
Education Crystal 108, Earth Culture. A typical ode much loved by the people you will live among, Khaled. Trees by Joyce Kilmer. I think that I shall never see poem as lovely as a tree. A tree whose branches wide and strong.
I like trees.
So does your average Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah, I like Cocker Spaniels too. But the thing is that obviously crystals are something that has not been explored because it's not technology, according to a lot of people. But crystals have been around for a long time. Now, being on Big Time Paranormal, I go through a lot of stories and I try to keep an eye on a lot of things. And there are suggestions that the ancient continent of Atlantis, which many people believe existed, including Edgar Casey's son, they believe that crystals powered the continent. Now, one of the speculations is about the Bermuda Triangle is that there is actually an ancient crystal that powered one of the cities that activates once in a while and causes the Bermuda Triangle. Now, I'm not saying that this is real. I'm just saying that this is the suggestion by people that have looked into it. And there are a lot of people that believe in crystals. So scientists have now started saying, well, what if this technology can be real? Well, let's take a look at a video where they're actually developing this technology, which I think is fascinating.
For Mashable, I'm Lauren Goris. Clear glass appears to do nothing more than reflect light or protect your iPhone. But Japanese tech giant Hitachi says it developed a way for glass to store data forever, and this transparent plane is it. Forever storage might not sound groundbreaking, but if it works, it would be. Remember, data on CDs and hard drives has an expiration date. Most storage devices can keep your data safe from its fate for a few decades, but then that's it. You lose your music, photos, and old documents. So is the answer really in this 2 by 2 centimeter sliver of glass? Almost. The model you see here wouldn't hold much data. 1 square inch of the storage glass holds about 40 megabytes, about the density of a CD. To put this all into perspective, there are standard SD cards that hold 32 gigs. The AFP reports scientists haven't had the chance to put their glass to practical use just yet, but that doesn't mean they haven't put this thing to a few different tests. Unlike your thumb drive, this shard can survive in temperatures as hot as 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. It's also waterproof, resistant to many chemicals, and unaffected by radio waves. It seems the only thing that could shatter your storage dreams is, well, a crack in the glass. The chip design currently features 4 layers of quartz glass, each one with tiny dots that hold the data. But unlike Google's Glass, Hitachi's storage chip won't put the data in front of your face. You'll actually have to put this glass in a computer to access its information. A lot of work, we know. For Mashable, I'm Lauren Goris.
Now, what I find about this interesting is that the storage life is life. Of course, CDs have, or compact discs have a life of, I believe it's 20 years. And of course, they spoke about the storage on our computers and so on have a certain life. But imagine if these things can be stored for a lifetime on a simple piece of glass. So that'll be exciting to see that happen as well. Can you imagine, just carrying a small box of photographs and memory and stuff like that? So if there's a fire, they actually have a better chance of survival, taking that the glass can take a heat up to 180, 1800 degrees. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about archaeology. Now, I know the subject about the Christian Bible is a very touchy subject because not everybody's a Christian. Okay, I can understand that. But one of the things that is spoken about in the Bible is about this young man taking care of Goliath. Let's watch a little bit of this video.
So be it!
Now, of course, most of us are familiar with the story of David and Goliath. It's also become a bit of a metaphor for when you're fighting against corporations or whatever, or big government or whatever. Now, we ran across this story about King David's palace discovered by archaeologists finds a huge palace. Now, this is in Jerusalem. Now, into just I forgot how long ago it was. The story of King David was just something that was in the Bible, but of course there was they found some evidence where a tablet was found which said the house of David, and so this leads toward that King David actually existed. So let's watch this video on the discovery of what could possibly be his palace.
For Newsy, I'm Megan Murphy. It's known as the Holy City. Now, a new find by archaeologists might support the title. Two large buildings were uncovered in Jerusalem that researchers believe to have been palaces belonging to the Bible's King David. Archaeologists found hundreds of artifacts, including stone tools, pottery vessels, and religious objects. One professor told Fox News the find is indisputable proof of the existence of a central authority in Judah during the time of King David. But not everyone recognizes the historical significance equally, mainly the joint kingdom of David and Solomon in the 10th century BCE. Haaretz explains minimalists question whether there really was such a place, and if it did exist, it was limited to Jerusalem, which they claim was no bigger than an average village. And until the 1990s, there was no evidence King David even existed outside of the Bible. In 1993, a team of archaeologists discovered this piece of basalt rock with House of David inscribed in Aramaic dating back to the 9th century BC. Roughly a century after he ruled. Critics do agree the site is important. However, some question the archaeologists' reliance on the Bible as a source of evidence. The Israel Antiquities Authority said it hoped the new discoveries will lead to the site becoming a national park. For Newsy, I'm Megan Murphy.
Well, there you have it. So, whether you believe in the story of King David or any of the stories that's related to the Bible, it still is a fascinating story. So anyway, that's pretty much it this week, because we knew that we were going to have a lot of stories, and we wanted to make sure that we got them to you. Now next week we'll probably cover much more, especially when it comes to conventions and so on. So until next week, remember, today is your day. Go out and make it happen. Thanks. We'll see you next week.